Just when I think I'm out, they pull me right back in. Alright. Let's go some zombies up.
That's right, folks, you asked for it, so here it is, my thoughts on Fandom Musicals' third full-length production, Frostbite, a Canadian zombie musical. I'll be honest, my expectations for this show were much higher than I was expecting. But then again, can you blame me? Fandom Musicals' last two shows were both awesome in their own rights, and now to tackle a genre that well deserves a proverbial kick in the ass from a group such as this is something pretty interesting to be looking forward to. So, in the end, what did I think of their latest show?
It was surprisingly not what I thought it was going to be.
Now, while I once again think that this group has pulled off another fantastic show, it's most certainly unlike its predecessors in more ways than one. How exactly? Well, let's take a look and find out. First and foremost, let's talk about our story. Toronto, Ontario has come under fire from a zombie apocalypse. The people in the streets are becoming flesh-eating monsters, and anyone who gets bit ends up becoming one. Thus, it's up to a group of ragtag misfits to come together, stay strong, and survive the horrors that they're to witness. And if I was to go any further into the plot, I'd end up going into spoiler territory, so for the sake of those who haven't seen it yet, I won't give anything else away. Because this show, more so than its last two, definitely has its share of plot twists that really keeps you invested in the story. However, this brings me to my first point about the show as to why I think it's much different than the others that have come before it. Mainly, that even though it strives itself on being a parody musical, everything about the story is still taken very seriously, and almost goes out of its way to tell a dramatic story, even though it still hinges on the occasional jokes. One scene in particular I found especially heavy, with it bearing very little to laugh about, but at the same time I considered it to be one of the show's strongest scenes, and if you've seen this show, you know exactly which scene I'm talking about. Now, like I said, that doesn't mean the show is completely without its jokes, as the comedy is still present and, once again, hits the mark almost every time, especially due to the dire situations that the show takes place in. Bottom line, even though that they are trying to tell a good story, which is a very good story, it doesn't mean they couldn't have hammered out more jokes. Basically, more of this...
Well, that's because I'm a law enforcer on the street, and chief of police in the sheets.
Instead of...
So I fucking had left!
And on that note, let's move on to the characters. First and foremost, before I say anything, I will say that every single person in the cast gave a great performance. But with that said, there were a lot of times when things became a bit hit or miss. So before I go any further, just a warning that I may get a bit critical here. So please try not to take any of my criticism to heart. Now that that has been said, let's talk about our main hero, Dick Rhymes, played by Tyler Eldon. As far as a straight-laced protagonist goes, Dick is pretty decent. He delivers some fun one-liners and overall has a likable personality that thankfully doesn't get boring after a while. And yes, his name does indeed present a lot of these jokes.
If I may, sir, why are you so interested in Dick? It's a hard question.
Moving on to our supporting cast, we have Alex, played by Alice Stiles. Though the character still hinges on the cliche of being the tomboy / love interest of the story, Alice's performance is still strong enough to make the character enjoyable. That and her singing voice isn't too bad either, though maybe just too sporadic at times. Moving down the list, we have the show's power couple, Cookie and Stimulation, played by Doria Bolton and Rachel Callahan. Both of these characters are on opposite ends of the spectrum in my opinion. Cookie, I sadly didn't really care for, though she did really have her moments, and of course, Doria has one hell of a singing voice. Stimulation, on the other hand, was just so chock full of likability, combined with Miss Callahan's full-on commitment to the role, making it all the more enjoyable. And of course, the character's frickin' hilarious.
Stop, did you do drugs or deal them? Because I know this one guy named Heisenberg, and he's really fictitious, and he's just a part of a wonderful television show, and you should really watch it. It's called Breaking Bad.
The rest of the supporting cast are also decent. Both Angelica and Kennedy, played by Sasha Linansky and Lucas McDonald, respectively, are fun characters, with Lucas in particular having a fun twist with his character, but again, I won't give anything else away. And of course, I have to give props to the actors who had to take on more than one role, but in particular, I gotta give the titles of my favorite characters to any of the roles played by Tyler Mann or Tariq Conker. These two are just great, delivering really good comedic undertones at just the right right time when they're needed, and it's always a blast when they're on stage no matter who they're playing. Now, if you've seen the show, you've probably picked up on the fact that I haven't talked about a certain character yet. And even though this might end up getting me some flack, I gotta say it with an honest head. So, here we go. Last but not least, we have Bobby, played by Joshua Barba. Now, I would like to make this perfectly clear. Josh gave a great performance all throughout the show. He displayed the most emotional depth and served as the dramatic center of the show, which is great. However, while his acting chops are most certainly a highlight of the show, Josh's singing is, well...
The sun can eat up the earth and incinerate us. We can get our bodies splattered by a runaway bus. The ground swallows whole as she gets sewered on a pole. God, I sure hope nothing goes wrong.
Again, this is no disrespect to Josh in any way, as I'm most certain he gave the absolute best he could to give us a fun number, but it's still quite distracting.
You bastard!
Whoa, easy, Dick. Put that thing away. Alright, seeing how we're on the subject, why don't we move on to the music?
Once again, I have to give major props to both writer and director Christian Michael Chitro O'Leary, as well as music composers Tyler Mann and Renee Beauregard, as the music in the show continues Fandom Musicals' trend of having really good music that illustrates the characters' personalities and the story's tone and setting overall. The song Fight for All really hammers this point in greatly, and is definitely a fun anthem that really gets you pumped up. Other songs like Take a Bite and a Bullet and Beyond the Grave are also really good numbers, and ones that I actually count among some of my favorite songs Fandom Musicals has done up to this point. But as far as my favorite song from the show goes, unlike Star Explorers, where the song they were promoting the most sadly kept disinteresting me over time, Band Together is the complete opposite, as I feel it just keeps getting better and better every time I listen to it. It establishes so much about our characters, the dilemmas they're in, and what they'll have to face later on to achieve their goals, all in just over a minute. That is incredible. But sadly, it does come with a price, as does a majority of the songs. Now, like Fandom Hearts and Star Explorers, Frostbite also had a recorded soundtrack available on Bandcamp, which is how I critique the music. And while I do think the soundtrack is great, there is a small nitpick that irks me about it. Friggin' auto-tune. Now, for the record, it's not bad. In fact, most of the songs on the soundtrack benefit from it. But then others, it's really unneeded and just, again, really distracting. But again, that's my only really big complaint. Other than that, I would definitely say that Frostbite is once again another fantastic show from Fandom Musicals. While I do sadly consider it to be their weakest show so far, it is by absolutely no means their worst. The cast is once again terrific, the music is almost some of the best, and the story, though it does take itself a little too seriously sometimes, is still great. Overall, Frostbite is definitely unlike its previous two shows in more ways than one, but the fact that it embraces it makes it all the more enjoyable, and I look forward to Fandom Musicals continuing this trend with their future shows. I give Frostbite 4 out of 5. Like, comment, subscribe, let me know what you thought of Frostbite, a Canadian zombie musical. Thank you for watching, Defoe's out.
We got a new destination and a new team raring to go.
Ready to fuck some zombies up, let's get the show on the road. Ready to fight, but still I'm scared, cause what if we get bit? Don't worry sis, I got my sword, I'll cut your head off quick.
Just lost my wife, I got my girl, she's all that I got left.
Don't worry Dad, I'll be fine, cause I know what you wanna bet. Now we will all band together, and we won't ever